Hello and welcome to Blind Eye Live. Blind Eye in the morning for the second day in a row. I am Hunter King, Blind Eye himself, owner and proprietor of Blind Eye Media, and today I'm going to finish off my NFL Draft prospect rankings. We've got our corners and safeties. I will say my cornerback rankings are going to be very different, I have a feeling, than most of the draft community. After the very tippy top guys, I am really high on a lot of the small school corners in this draft. I think some of the small school corners have a lot of the highest upside, and just best overall tape, which, for as talented as some of them are, they probably should, considering their level of competition that they face. But I'm really high on a lot of the small school cornerbacks. So we'll get into that here in a minute. We'll also be doing the safeties. Sorry. I might also give some kickers and punters that I like in the draft. That'll be part of this rookie class, and then also I will be doing a mock draft after we finish that up of the first round. That will be tonight. I will be streaming at some point tonight once I get home from Beast Feast, which Beast Feast at 6 p.m. tonight. There are still some tickets available. I would totally recommend you come. It's going to be a good time. Just search Beast Feast 2022 Beaumont, Texas or just Beaumont, and you'll find the link. It's going to be a fun time. It's at Ford Park inside. Starts at 6 p.m. Jace and Missy Robertson are speaking. I'll probably say that again at the end of the show this morning, but that's where I'm going to be as soon as I get home. I am going to go live and kind of recap whatever's been going on in the first round. If I'm home with enough time that there's still some picks coming in, I'll be giving analysis of those. But I'm super excited for this year's draft because I think it's going to be really interesting because no one really knows where the quarterbacks are going. There are teams that need them, but once again, there have been some people who've tried to hype there are people who have been trying to hype Malik Willis because a lot of people realize that quarterbacks in some way, quarterbacks very much drive coverage. People care a little people just care a little more about the quarterback position. The casuals care a little more about hearing about what's going on with quarterbacks than they do other positions because they're casuals, which is fine. Not everybody can be hardcore about everything, but sorry, I'm battling dry throat this morning, which is not good because I'm singing tonight. So, some people have tried to hype some of the players or some of the quarterbacks in this draft class a little more than I think they should be. They've been downplaying everyone else. They've been downplaying this class, and all of a sudden the last, 3 months, everyone... And it seemed... And they started it really before that, kind of easing into it, but they've been pushing Malik Willis as a prospect that he's not. There's some people... And it has led some people to believe he's Lamar Jackson level or whatever. And that's just not true. Lamar Jackson played against much tougher competition and was much more productive. People can talk about completion percentages all they want. I don't care. Willis, because of his level of competition, should have had a much better. And if you watch his tape, he should have completed way more passes. He just didn't pull the trigger. So, and that's going to be the issue with my mock draft is I don't know where quarterbacks are going, but I'm going to have some fun with it. Everybody's done one. I'll say this. I don't love... I like reading them to a certain extent, but I don't love doing mock drafts because I don't know what's going on, and two, there are guys that you like for certain teams, and sometimes getting yourself into the GM mind for every team, you're like, man, there's this one fit that I really, really love. But my mock draft's not going to feel right if I'm not honest. I mean, and there's different scenarios, but, you know, this is a draft where I just don't see people trading up. Or I think a lot of teams want to trade down, but I don't know how many are going to, because I don't think they're going to get the value this year. The only way that happens is if a team's moving up for a quarterback or moving up a great distance. But I don't know who's going to be willing to do that this year. So, but we'll do a mock draft at the end of the show. But let's jump into these. Well, and actually, real quick, I do want to hit up. I do want to talk about the games from last night in the NBA playoffs real quick. The Warriors finished off the Nuggets in a really close game on the in Golden State, 102-98. Curry clinched the game with a layup late. Let me hit this real quick, because the big thing was Denver was beating the brakes off of them for during the second and third quarters. Golden State came out swinging, was up 5. Denver outscored them by 5 in the second quarter. Third quarter, they opened up an 8-point lead, and Golden State just decided in the fourth quarter, yeah, we're not losing this game. Beat them or outscored them by 12. And I say like the Nuggets were beating the brakes off them. They outplayed them for the middle part of the game. But the Warriors' offensive capabilities and peak defensive capabilities are just, they're pretty crazy, if I'm being completely honest. The Bucks closed out the Bulls last night. The Bulls were without Levine and Caruso, so it wasn't a shock that the Bucks pulled off the win in the end. So they've moved on 116-100. So we've got a few of our... I just want to show y'all this still frame because this is still on ESPN site. But that's not what I wanted. I keep clicking this other thing because it looks very similar to the Streamlabs logo. That's not what I wanted either. That's just nasty. That's my point guard. Dude, I love Morant. But looking at the schedule, I'm going to look at the schedule real quick for playoff games tonight. So, so we have Game 6 in Toronto, the Toronto Philly series. Toronto's at home. They could very well tie this up, and that would be incredibly funny. Game 6 for Phoenix, New Orleans. Phoenix is in New Orleans. I think if Phoenix plays like they did in Game 5, I think they're going to close out New Orleans tonight. Game 6 for Dallas versus Utah at Utah. That Utah has battled valiantly. I think Dallas is going to end up winning it, and I just think it's time for Utah to blow things up. And then Friday we will get the Game 6 of Memphis and Minnesota. And hopefully we're able to win on the road and not have to go to a Game 7. Because that's going to be nerve-wracking. But with that being said, we're going to get into these prospect ratings really quickly. Man, that is really bright. Even with like the lighting I have, that website is really bright on my face because I have to sit so close. Okay, so I wish I could. Let's see here. Okay, so we're gonna get into the cornerbacks, and it's really easy at the top. My top three is pretty much the same as everyone else's. This one has gotten closer, but I've still got Sauce Gardner 1 because I think he's really safe. Whether it's press man or you want to run press cover 3 in that kind of Seahawks defensive style. The Pete Carroll, Gus Bradley defensive style. Sauce Gardner's going to be great. And he can be great in cover 2 as well. Like his ability to press and redirect. There should be very few occasions that you would have Gardner not in press coverage because he's so good at it. And he's an awesome athlete as well. I mean, the dude's 6'3" with 33.5-inch arms, and he ran a 4.40. He's got really good fluidity. Like, he just pins people to the sideline out of press. Like, he pretty much makes receivers go wherever he wants them to go. Like, and he has the ability to erase a receiver early in the play. And if you have a good pass rush, he has the ability to really erase receivers because those receivers aren't going to have time to eventually find a way to get open. Number 2 is Derek Stingley, who I'm hearing for some teams is their number 1 corner. We're hearing talk now that Gardner or Stingley could go in the top 3 even. Like, that's how wide open this is. And for some teams who are picking at the very top end of the second round, there are a number of teams that think they can get a Boye Mafe, maybe an Arnold Ebiketie. It seems like George Karlaftis has fallen a little bit. There are teams that believe they can get a pretty quality pass rusher at the top of the second round. So don't be surprised that, or don't be surprised if one of these corners goes a little bit earlier than has been being mocked. Because I've been seeing kind of the highs maybe for the Jets. Oh, another guy, Drew Rosenhaus has been talking about how Drake Jackson of USC has been he's been on 15 of the 32 teams list of 30 private workout visits. So, which that doesn't mean he's going in the first round, but don't be shocked if he sneaks into the late first round. Because a lot of those teams that were on that 15 are picking in that range. And that wouldn't shock me. He's got great physical traits. He's got production. He's got a great build, especially for a 3-4 backer. And he's got coverage snaps like he has a decent amount of coverage snaps on tape too, which once again helps him fit that 3-4. But anyway, that's just to highlight, the fact that some of these corners could go early. Number 3, after Stingley, like I don't need to talk too much about Stingley. Stingley's 2019 tape is arguably the best tape of any corner in the class. I would say it is. Like I would argue he was the best defensive player in the country in 2019. In my opinion. Sorry to Chase Young. Wasn't that his last year in college, 2019? I can't remember right off the top of my head. Pretty sure. So Trent McDuffie is my number 3 corner. He's not as physically gifted as Gardner or Stingley, but he still ran a 4.40. He's a little bit smaller. Well, he's a little shorter, not quite as long as Stingley. He's definitely smaller than Gardner. But McDuffie is tough. I think he can play. He can play in any scheme. He can play slot. He can play outside. McDuffie just doesn't have any weaknesses. And he's really tough against the run. McDuffie has no weaknesses. His ceiling's not as high as Gardner or Stingley because of he doesn't have their physical tools. And he's not as good at doing what those two guys do best. But he's great. McDuffie's just another in a long line of great Washington corners. And he's not the only guy who's going to go early out of the University of Washington this year. My number 4 corner is I've got him higher than pretty much everybody except maybe Marcus Whitman. And that's Zion McCollum out of Sam Houston State. I've talked about him a lot on the channel. 6'2", 200 pounds. I believe he's got like 32.5-inch arms. Let me double check that. Actually, no, his arm's a little bit shorter than that, and actually kind of short for his height. 30 3/4. I'm not worried about that because of his height and his athleticism. This guy's combine workout is ridiculous, and his RAS score is one of the best in the history of the position. You've heard me talk about relative athletic score before. 4.3 340, 39.5-inch vert, 11-foot broad jump, 6.48 3-cone drill, which is insane, especially for his height, and a 3.94 20-yard shuttle, which is the fastest 20-yard shuttle, I think, at the Combine this year. Although that is a event a lot of people didn't do because of how the event was structured, because people didn't want to get bad times because they were gassed by the time it happened. McCollum, he just did everything. And his tape from Sam Houston State, this guy can do anything. Matt Miller, for some reason, has him listed as a safety. Here's the thing. McCollum could be the best free safety in the draft. If that's the case. He has the tools to be, incredible. He tackles. He's really great playing off coverage. He's good in press. He's good in man. He's good in zone. I think, and the sky's the limit for him. He's got really good ball skills. The only knock on him is that he played at a smaller school. But he dominated. I think McCollum has the highest upside over Tariq Woolen even. He is the highest upside corner who's not going to go in the first round. Because obviously Gardner and Stingley are extremely high upside guys who have played at a higher level of college football and played really well. If I'm looking at McCollum and Woolen are right there, though, in terms of upside. But I think McCollum's more polished and has better technique and is just a better player than Woolen right now. And the only way Woolen's going to be better than McCollum is if he's able to equal him in all these other areas. And while he is fluid, he's not as fluid as McCollum. He's a little bit taller, definitely has longer arms. And, he ran a 4.26 40, had a 42-inch vert. But he didn't do any of the other testing at the Combine. And while he does look pretty smooth on tape, he's not as smooth as Zion McCollum in his transitions. And he's still learning the position. He's only been playing corner 2 years. We'll get to Woolen later, but Zion McCollum is my number 4 corner. And he's McCollum is my Christian Watson of the cornerback group. He's probably my favorite prospect at the position because I love a lot of these small school guys. And because I think they have as high of ceilings as anyone at their positions, but you're going to be able to get them after guys who, or higher profile, bigger names. My number 5 corner is Kyer Elam out of Florida. Elam 6'2", physical corner. Ran in the 4.3s in the 40. I think it was like a 4.36, 4.38. He's got really good long speed. The problem with Elam's tape is he's good at everything, but he's inconsistent. Well, except for run support. He doesn't play in run support as big as he should, considering his size. And he doesn't shed blockers as good as you would think he does, because there are smaller corners in this draft who do a much better job of shedding blocks. Josh Jobe, for instance, is like 5'11", half 182. Like 2.5 inches shorter, like 10 pounds. Actually, I almost want to say Elam played close to 200 pounds. It might be closer to like 15, 18 pounds lighter than Elam. And he sheds blocks way better than Elam. And is a better tackler. But Elam is really good in press coverage. He sometimes allows a little too much separation early after the press. But I think that's a bait attempt in his case. He's got pretty good ball skills. Like, there's things he can polish and get better at. Like, one thing he does really well is he allows receivers to eat or to close the cushion gap rather than kind of like stopping and closing it himself and getting back or getting into phase or something like that. Like, he's pretty good at allowing that cushion to close without like either stopping or closing it himself and giving receivers a chance to kind of blow past him. Now, one thing he doesn't do, despite his really good speed, he does let downfield speed threats kind of get over the top of him and stack on him a little too often, because he kind of does want to play underneath. Like, he has really good length, and I think he wants to play the ball a little more. But that's stuff that can get coached up. Like, I'm a real big fan of Kyer Elam. My number 6 corner is Andrew Booth of Clemson. Booth's a physical corner. I'd argue his tape in some regards is better than Elam's. And he's a really good athlete. I don't think he's quite as athletic as Elam. And he didn't test during the workout process because of recovering from an injury. I think he and Elam's grades are really, really close for me, so you can flip those in either order. But Booth was so good that Clemson really wasn't worried about losing Darian Kendrick when he transferred to Georgia this past year. And I'll get into Kendrick later. Like why he was kicked out of Clemson, because this is a little bit of a red flag. But Booth's good athlete, physical player. Once again, I think he's really solid, and he's really intelligent. I would say Booth, in terms of his intelligence level and reading route combinations, like seeing them develop and reacting accordingly, he's better than Elam. But Elam's got his physical tools are just a little bit better, which is why I've got him slightly ahead. My number 7 corner from there is Kyler Gordon of Washington. He did not run as fast in the 40 as some people expected. He's 5'11 and a half, 194 pounds, 31-inch arms. Like, he's really physical. I think he's actually faster than his 4.5 240 time. He was a track guy, but his tape's really is also really solid. He can do anything you want on the outside of the defense. I don't think he's quite as versatile as Trent McDuffie, but Gordon, like I said, there's a lot of really solid corners in this class. I really think people have talked down this draft because the quarterbacks aren't quite as good. This is a really good class of players. This is a deep class. People can say whatever they want about there not being, marquee superstar talents at different positions, which I don't necessarily agree with. But, because this pass rushing class has like 4 guys that can go in the top 10 and deservedly go in the top 10. The offensive tackle class has 3 elite offensive tackles. We've got 2, in my opinion, the top 2 corners in the class are elite level prospects. We've got a really talented safety class, like super talented. Like I don't know what people are talking about, and this is one of the most athletic drafts, period, that we've ever seen. So Gordon's 7. My number 8 corner is Kobe Bryant, the reigning Thorpe Award winner and Ahmad Gardner's teammate at Cincinnati. Great size, 6'1", 193. His arms are 30 and 5/8 inches. He's not the fastest. He only ran a 4.54 40. I'm not super worried about that. He's really strong. 17 reps on the bench. There are defensive linemen who have 50 pounds on him, tight ends who have like 50 pounds on him who didn't put up near or as many bench press reps. What makes Kobe Bryant special is he is a perfect number 2 corner. He understands, like, if you pair him with a great press man corner, like if you pair him with a Ahmad Gardner, if you pair him with a great number 1 corner, what Bryant is going to do is he is really smart. He can play in any coverage. He knows how to play as a complementary corner who is looking for the ball to come to his area because he knows the quarterback is unlikely to throw in the other direction. He plays aggressive. I'm trying to remember how many interceptions. I can't remember, 6 or 7 interceptions last year. Actually, I bet you if I look at his profile here, it'll tell me. Let's see here. And he was a 4-year starter at Cincinnati, which is also really impressive. I just think, and he can play in the slot. He can play all over. I know Brett Coleman was for Bootleg Football, and his own channel. He was doing interviews at the Shrine Bowl, and there was a receiver there who said the toughest corner the best corner he faced in college was Kobe Bryant, because you knew what you were getting from Sauce Gardner. Bryant was constantly switching things up on the other side. So if you're talking about a high-end complementary corner, Kobe Bryant's your dude. That's why I've got him at 8. And he might have upside to do more than that. My number 9 corner, I can't drop Roger McCreary any lower than this. I think his tape is excellent. He might be small. Like, he's 5'11", 190, which is good size, but his arms, he's got sub 29-inch arm length, which can be a red flag. He only ran a 4.5 flat in the 40. So a lot of people have him as strictly a slot corner. Here's the thing. If he is, he'll be one of the most instinctive slot corners in the league. He's got good tape. He's really good at playing off and driving on and closing down on things. At the college level, that was big for him on tape. People worry about that because of his lack of length at the pro level, but the guy's tape's good. The guy played at a high level in the toughest conference in college football. He went up against a tough slate of receivers in his career. This guy had to play Alabama and LSU every year. He had to play Arkansas with Trey. Here are the receivers he's matched up against in his career. Well, I mean, you know all the. It's like, let's see, is he a junior red shirt? Trying to. No, he's a senior. So this guy played against Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall. This guy played against Treylon Burks. This guy played against Makai Polk of Mississippi State, and he held up really well. They play Georgia every year. This guy's matched up against a ton of good receivers. I want to say he matched up against Tennessee's Josh Palmer as well, who was a third-round pick last year, who the Chargers really, really love. Because he went a little earlier than a lot of people thought he was going to, because a lot of people thought he was going to be day 3. Like, most people thought he was going round 4, and he goes in round 3 ahead of Diami Brown, who some people had, like, potentially sneaking in the back in the first round. So, McCreary's 9. My number 10 corner is Tariq Woolen, and I thought about putting him higher than this. And he's definitely got more physical skills than McCreary. But his tape's just not as good as the 9 guys I have in front of him. And he is extremely high upside, and I love him. And, there was a period of time where I thought he was going to go at the end of the first round. That could still happen. I don't think it's going to. Because he's not Caleb Farley. Because Caleb Farley, when he came out, had only been playing corner for like 2 years. His tape was better at Virginia Tech, and he was playing a higher level competition. But, you can't teach 6'4", 205 with 33 and 5/8 inch arms that runs 4.26, jumps 42 inches in the vert. One of the reasons he converted from receiver is because of his hands aren't great. Like, he's kind of got bad hands for even a defensive back. Now, that could still get better, but he can also kind of lose track of the ball when he has his back turned. He's not great yet at despite the fact he's a former receiver, he's not great with his back to the quarterback. And he's got a lot of work to do in all the mental areas of the game, whether it's recognizing route concepts coming at him in different types of zone coverage, understanding where he needs to be depth-wise in zone coverage, maximizing his length, playing underneath, because his length and athleticism allow him a lot more room for error when his technique's good. So, but he can develop. I couldn't put him any lower than 10th. I had him ahead of McCreary and Gordon and Bryant at a stage, but I couldn't leave him ahead of them. My number 11 corner is Marcus Jones out of Houston, who is a crazy weapon. Like, this guy's one of the best return men in the draft. He can play offense. Like, this guy played offensive snaps as a receiver and gadget player for Houston. He's 5'8", 174, 28 and 7/8 inch arms. Like, he's small. He's a slot corner. Like, period. Here's the thing. His ball skills are amazing. His quickness and speed is, top tier. He's got really good instincts. Like, his upside in the slot is better than McCreary. He's just smaller. Like, I don't believe he can play outside. But he is a really good athlete, and he could prove me wrong. But Jones, I think, can be an elite slot corner. He just played a step lower competition to McCreary, and McCreary's tough. Like, he shows real effort in run support, and is a better tackler than Jones. Jones is a bit of a liability against the run. which as a slot, you know, and that doesn't mean that Jones doesn't try, but he gets swallowed up in the run game. My number 12 corner is Alontae Taylor out of Tennessee. Taylor's got prototypical size, 6 foot, 200 pounds, 32 and a quarter inch arm length, 4.36 in the 40. He had a 10'8" broad jump. His vert was a 34 and a half inch, which was a little less than I expected. But that 12'8" broad jump is really impressive. Oh, take a minute. And his hips are a little high, like he's got kind of a leggier build. He's a little better playing linearly up the field. Some people have thought about converting him to safety for that reason, which I think he can play any spot you want. Like, he's physical in the run game. He'll get downhill and tackle, beat blocks. I think you could play strong safety, although he definitely would be better as a free. But his press coverage technique is as good as anyone in the class. He's got one of the I should say in the second tier. Like, Gardner as a press corner is on, a level of his own. But Taylor's technique is textbook. His punch in press, like that initial punch at the line of scrimmage, is forceful and violent. It's like that contact level. He'll sometimes it can rattle receivers and get them off their plan. His ball skills are pretty good. If there's one thing I could say is he could get his head around a little quicker while playing down the field, running with receivers. But I think Taylor's really solid. I don't know if he's fluid enough necessarily to play slot corner, but I believe he can play outside. And I believe he can play free safety for sure. So I think he has versatility in that regard. And like I said, 4.36 speed. So he has speed to recover, and he's got the size and length and physicality to play with bigger receivers. 13 for me is, where is he? So my number 13 corner is Joshua Williams of Fayetteville State. Another long, big corner, 6'3", 195, 32 and 7/8 inch arms. So he's got great length. He ran a 4.53 40. I knew that was wrong when I said it. 4.53. So he's not the fastest corner, but he's really strong and physical. 36-inch vert, 10'4" broad jump, which are really good numbers in that regard. He's got a strong, once again, he's another great press corner. His body control, for his size, he's really smooth. And it helps him make up for maybe not being the fastest corner because he transitions super well. He's the exact perfect kind of corner that you want for dealing with your Mike Evanses of the world. 14 for me is Jalen Amar Davis out of Alabama. There's a lot of stuff Amar Davis can work on, but he's got really good tools. 6'1", 197, 31-inch arms, 4.39 40, 14 bench press reps is good. He had a 34.5-inch vertical, which is fine. But he profiles as a good press corner. He's got really good recovery speed. And he played at Alabama. 15 for me is Damari Mathis out of Pittsburgh. Mathis 5'11", 196, 32-inch arms. He had a 4.39 40. He can play outside, but he's got really good instincts, and he's really good at playing in underneath coverage. I think it's like he could challenge to be one of the better slot defenders in the class. With, like I said, with McCreary and Jones. And physically speaking, he's almost as athletic as Jones, and he's more athletic than McCreary, and he has better length than either of them. I almost put him ahead of Amore Davis and Williams. Well, he was vying for a spot in my top 10, I'll say that, but I just couldn't put him ahead of Woolen or Taylor. My number 16 corner is Joshua Jobe of Alabama. He's tough, he's physical. His 2021 tape wasn't as good, but I think part of that was because he played injured. He played half the season with like a busted foot until he just couldn't go anymore by the championship game. Or I guess like the postseason. But he's 5'11 and a half. Listed at 182. He plays stronger than that. And he's got really great arm length for being 5'11". Well, if this will load. 32 and 5/8 inch arms, which for being under 6 foot, and really like just even at 6'1", 6'2" for the body build, like that's great arm length. So being sub 6 foot with that arm length, he can play outside or the slot. He's really good at stopping underneath routes. He's not the fastest player. Like he's not as athletically gifted as some of these other guys, but he's kind of like another one of those Levi Wallace type Alabama corners who's just really solid. Could be a good complementary corner. He started off as a slot guy and ended up moving outside, so he has experience doing both. My number 17 corner is Jacoby Durant of South Carolina State. I've talked about this guy a lot. I love him. His tape against Clemson, he looked every bit the part of a great player. Like he looked as good as any player on the field. Honestly, he looked like the best player in that game. He's 5'10", 180 pounds, 30 3/4 lengths or 30 3/4 inch arm length. So he's got good length for being a little undersized. 4.38 40. His hip fluidity is really good. He's another guy I thought about putting higher because there's an argument he could be or could end up being like he's going to be a really good slot corner at worst. There is some Jair Alexander to his game. I think he could play outside because I think he's got enough length. He's competitive. He's scrappy. He's got really good ball skills. Very intelligent. But that lack of size kind of pushes him down the board a little bit for me. But, I mean, this guy had 2 interceptions against Clemson. Like, he's legit. Number 18, Sam Webb out of Missouri Western. Another small school guy. 6'1", 202 pounds, 32-inch arms. He had a 4.48 40, 14 reps in the bench. Another physical press corner. Some people are higher on or have him like rated even higher than like I do, which is not a shock. He's got good tape. And he's tough. Like he's just a tough player. Number 19 for me, and maybe a little lower than some other people, is Martin Emerson out of Mississippi State. 6'2", 201, 33.5-inch arms. Big physical corner. ran a 4.53 40. Some people would probably flip him and Joshua Williams, who I talked about earlier. I mean, a lot of these guys could go in any order. And it wouldn't shock me if, like, Martin Emerson was even one of the first 10 corners picked. Depends on your scheme and what you value at corner. But Emerson, once again, argument after you get past Sauce Gardner as press corners, Emerson's technique and ability to just get receivers off timing, off their route, is as good as anyone in the class. Number 20 for me is Mario Goodrich out of Clemson. He's kind of skinny. He's 6 foot 176, 30 5/8 inch arms. He's not super fast, considering how skinny he is, 4.52. But he's pretty fluid. I think he can turn into a really good complementary corner. And now I'm going to get to two guys who it's probably, for some people, a little controversial that I am as low as I am on them. And that's Cam Taylor-Britt of Nebraska. And once again, this comes less because of I'm just lower than him than other people, as it is I'm just higher on some other guys. Like, I love a lot of these small school guys. Taylor-Britt, he's probably going to go a lot higher than I have him ranked. 5'11", 196, 31.5 inch arms, 4.38 40. And he's got really good ball skills, and I probably have him too low. But I really think this corner class, once you get past like the first 8 guys, I think all these guys are fairly close. Because I think the mid-round depth in this class is ridiculous. Because there's a lot of guys I could see going like in the back end of the second round. I could also see them going or not going until the 4th round because there's so many guys kind of in that skill range. But Britt's got a lot of talent. Nebraska's defense, I will say this. He did help erase the top Big Ten receivers. I'm not going to move him up, and I'm probably going to regret it. That makes me kind of think. You know what? I am going to move him up. So I'm going to put him at 13 right after Alontae Taylor. I can't leave him that low. And honestly, I think let me look at my notes. I'm not looking at my notes. I was trying to do this off of memory while looking at the prospect list. I did have him 13. So I did have him right after Taylor. So we'll put him 13. We'll put Joshua Williams 14. Damari Mathis 15. Janamar Davis 16. Jacoby Durant 17. Webb 18. Josh Jobe 19. Martin Emerson 20. Goodrich 21. Yeah, I couldn't have him that low. And then 22 is Tyreek Castro-Fields. Some people have him switching to safety. He's 6'1", 197 with 30 3/4 inch arms. He had a 4.38 40. He's got great physical tools. I just don't think he played up to his physical tools enough or while he was in college. Because to be honest, I felt like Jaquan Brisker was, while he played mostly safety, he was also arguably their best cornerback when they wanted to take someone away. I think Castro-Fields can get better at the next level, but he just, to me, out of everyone who has like all these corners in this draft that have really great physical traits, he used them, or he didn't get near as much out of them as some other guys. So he's 22 for me. Yeah. And now from here, we're going to kind of speed things up. We've got a lot of names to kind of get through because I think there's going to be a lot of guys get drafted here. Just from a physical tools perspective, 23 for me is Kalen Barnes out of Baylor. He had the fastest 40 at the combine with a 4.23. He originally, I think it was listed as a 4.21, but you know, he's right there for the fastest player in combine history. 5'11 and a half, 183, 31 and 3/4 inch arms. So he's got pretty good length. The thing is, his technique's not that great. He has upside, of course, because of his speed and his ability to potentially erase, you know, coverage mistakes with that speed is very tantalizing. However, this is the big however, he's going to have to get coached up to get the most out of him because really right now, if he only sees marginal improvement at the next level, like he just improves a bit, he's not going to be one of your top 3 corners. So there's that. After him, 24, Vincent Gray of Michigan. Big, strong corner, 6'2", 192, 32 and 3/8 inch arms, 4'5", 440. I think his tape's fine. I think he's a rotational guy. This is kind of in the I don't see these guys as starters. Like, they're going to have to make substantial improvement, I would say, to become starter-level players. 25's Cordell Flott out of LSU, 6'1.5", 175, skinny guy, 30-inch arms, small 8-inch hands. He's definitely, like, to me, a round 5 to 7 guy. I don't think he'll last till round 7, but I'll say this: he's skinny, he's scrappy. If he had played on the last 2 years, if LSU had been more of a contender than what they were the last 2 years, Flott would probably be a little bit higher. I think he's going to go kind of like Levi Wallace. He's going to go day 3, and he has a chance to be really solid. I'd actually, you know what? I'm going to flip him over Gray. He's 24. He's not, and the only reason I probably would have put him higher, but there's so many solid corners in this class with really good technique. But Flott's one of those day 3 upside, or guys who I just feel like has the ability to outplay his draft stock. So he's 24, moved down Gray to 25. Montark Brown of Arkansas is 26 for me, 6 foot, 196, 31-inch arms, 4'5", 540. He's not the fastest. But he's got sound technique. He's been well coached the last couple years under Barry Odom at Arkansas. It wouldn't shock me if he turned into a quality rotational corner. A Caleb Evans out of Missouri is 27. Now, he's got really great size, 6'2", 197, 32-inch arms. He ran a 4.4, 640, 36-inch vertical, 10'9" broad jump. This guy is one of your day 3, like, high upside picks. I just didn't think he was as... I don't think he's as sound in coverage as, say, a Montark Brown. I don't think his technique is as good yet. But you get him with a good DB coach. If he's coachable, he's got tools. He's going to be one of your highest upside day 3 players. 28. Demarion Williams out of Houston. He's another small corner, 5'10", 182, 29.5-inch arms. He opted not to run the 40 at the combine. He had really good numbers on the bench, 17 bench press reps, 34.5-inch vert, sub 10-foot broad jump. He's not very explosive. I think he profiles as a slot corner or because of his physicality, maybe a cover 2 corner. But he's a fighter, and I kind of like the undersized, scrappy corners. Just kind of a thing I like. After him, 29, Chase Lucas out of Arizona State. 5'11", 180, 32-inch arms, 4'4", 40, 39-inch vert, 10'8" broad jump. This guy has length and explosiveness. Once again, he's moldable. He has some tools that he could turn into a starter. But considering he was at Arizona State on what should have been a really good defensive staff, especially with former NFL DB and head coach Herm Edwards, I would think a guy with his athletic skills would have been a little more dominant at the college level, which makes me think maybe he doesn't have the ability to get much better. Because he should have been in, you would think, in an ideal development situation there. Let's see. And then my number 30 corner is Josh Thompson out of Texas. He ran a 4.4 flat at the combine. He looked decent in their on-field work. He was a redshirt senior, which is, that's a bit of a red flag for like corners, even with his physical traits. 5'11.5", 194 with 31-inch arms. Like, he's got good physical size. There's a lot of the speed at corner is ridiculous this year. And the guys who aren't necessarily super fast aren't slow, and they're big. This is a crazy toolsy class. It just depends on what kind of tools you're looking for. And then after that, I'm not going to get too deep. 31 for me is Jack Jones of Arizona State, Lucas's teammate. He's really skinny, and he's not fast. 5'11", 171, 30 and 3/4 inch arms, 4'5", 140. He just looks like a guy who would get bullied at the pro level. And basically all these guys at this point are kind of, I don't see much happening here. Isaac Taylor Stewart of USC is right after him. 6'1.5", 201, 31.5 inch arms. He ran a 4'4", 240, 10'3" broad jump. He's extremely athletic. His tape wasn't great. He doesn't know how to use it. He's a guy that needs a lot of coaching. I probably should put him ahead of Jones because he definitely has better physical tools, but honestly, Jones is just a better cornerback right now. Jalen Watson of Washington State. 6'2", 197, 32.25 inch arms, 4'5", 140, 18 on the bench. He's big, he's physical, but he was merely okay in college. Chris Steele of USC after that, 34, 4'4", or was it 33? Either way. 4'4", 40, 37.5 inch vert, 10'6" broad jump, 6 foot, 187, 31 inch arms. Once again, is he draftable? Yes. He needs a lot of work though. Both the USC corners, they have physical traits, but they need a lot more work, I think, than the guys ahead of them. Then it's DeMarcus Fields out of Texas Tech, Jermaine Waller of Virginia Tech, Michael Wright out of Oregon. And I mean, there's some other guys, but I don't think any of them are going to get drafted, so I'm not going to, or have a shot at getting drafted. I don't say they don't have a shot, but I don't expect them to, so I'm not going to mention them. Now, safety, we're going to blow through this. So my number one safety now is Daxton Hill out of Michigan because of his athletic traits. He could play corner as well. I think Daxton Hill, and he plays really good in the run game. To be honest, I think he's arguably better than Kyle Hamilton at defending the run. Especially the further away he gets from the line of scrimmage, he's going to have more impact in the run game than Hamilton. And that's why I have him higher than him. Hamilton is still safety too. But I think there's more bust potential with Hamilton than people realize. Or I say bust. If you draft him as high as he's going, I think there's going to be a high chance that people are disappointed. Not that he's going to be a bust, but I don't know if he's going to be elite. To me, he's a box safety who can get absolutely torched over the top. And I don't want to hear about his GPS speed because he got to that speed like once or twice and he had to run the length of the field to get there. Like, Hamilton is not sudden, really. He doesn't have great initial burst. His hips are not fluid at all. He needs to play downhill. He can play great in underneath zone. If he's matching people kind of, or slot receivers going laterally, he can be an impact in coverage because of his length. And he's got pretty good burst, but he doesn't have like elite burst. Like, considering how slow his 40 is, you really want his like first step quickness to be really elite, or first couple steps to be really elite, and they're not. And he's not as strong against the run as his reputation is because of his size. For a 6'4", 230 player, you imagine he'd be a little better and with as long as his arms are, you'd think Hamilton would be better at stacking up against the run, stacking and shedding. And actually, he's not 230. He's like 224, 33-inch arms. He did have a 38-inch vertical, and he had a 10'11" broad jump, which are awesome numbers. He had a 6'9" three-cone drill, which is pretty good change of direction for a DB. That's his size. 6'9's pretty good, I guess. It'd be better if he was like 250. But 4.32 20-yard shuttle. I mean, there are edge rushers and full-on linebackers who had better 20-yard shuttles. The thing is, like, that explosion in his vert and broad jumps, I don't think shows as much on tape. Like, he shows like he had good testing numbers, not great explosion numbers like those to me. But he's number 2. Number 3 is Jaquan Brisker out of Penn State. 6'1", 200 pounds, 30 3/4-inch arms, 4.49 40, 22 reps on the bench, 34.5-inch vert, 10'4" broad jump, and this dude is a dog. This guy has man coverage skills. He's got great zone coverage skills. He's a good tackler. Brisker is probably my favorite safety in the class, but he is my third-ranked safety. Number 4 for me is Lucine out of Georgia. 4.37 speed, 36.5-inch vert, a 11-foot 1-inch broad jump at 6'2", 200 with 32.25-inch arms. Cine and Hill, in terms of range at the free safety position, in terms of recognizing, playing that deep safety, and are the top two and are at doing that. And Cine, his closing speed and the pop he delivers as a hitter, dude, he's mean. Him coming across in single high or in two high against a receiver, he's going to dislodge the ball. It is hard to make contested catches when Cine is nearby because he's physical. So he's safety 4 for me. Safety 5 is Jalen Petrie out of Baylor. 5'11", 198, 30 and 5/8 inch arms. He opted not to run the 40 or do the broad jump at the combine. I'm not worried about that. 16 reps on the bench, 35-inch vert. He had a 6.7 4.3 cone and a 4.18 20-yard shuttle. This guy is your Tyrann Mathieu in this draft class. He plays bigger than his size in the run game. Like, because of the role he played at Baylor, this guy was setting the edge a lot in the run game and doing a solid job. He's really good at slipping blocks, dodging blocks, he's a great tackler. He's really instinctive underneath. He can play free. He just wasn't asked to do it a lot in college. In the pre-draft process, he looked really good playing. He looked really good playing free safety, but he is awesome in that box role, covering slot receivers, playing underneath hook zones, getting out to the flat in buzz, or when he's asked to play flat zone. I really like him. Some people, Petrie is is a guy who a lot of people say is like, he's not my highest rated safety, he's my favorite. He's not my favorite, but I really love his tape. And then after that, this guy's fallen for some people where he was like really high in the safety list going into the year. Verone McKinley is my number. Let me make sure I've got my numbering right here. Hill, Hamilton, Brisker, Cine, Petrie. Yeah. So Verone McKinley is my safety 6. And he played at Oregon, and he's not tall, but he's thick. He's 5'10", 198, 30 and 5/8 inch arms. He also opted not to run the 40, which I think is what dropped him below some other guys in this class. But 16 bench press reps, a 10-foot broad jump, 35-inch vert. I think he's a solid safety who can play both box and free. He's a solid tackler. He's been well coached. I really like their safety room. Or I've liked the safety room at Oregon the last 3 years. Last year, Javon Holland was awesome in the pros. Brady Breeze, I think, has a lot of upside as a downhill type safety. McKinley's kind of in between the two in that regard. I think he's really balanced. And he can play either spot. He's not as high upside as some other guys. But I just really like his tape. I think he's a really safe player. My number 7 safety, and this guy's moved up a lot for a lot of people because he's got incredible physical tools, is Nick Cross of Maryland. His tape's not amazing, but he did show improvement this past year. He needs to really pay attention to his coaches. But 6 foot, 212, 31.5 inch arms, and his combine workout was the best of the combine for the safety position, and one of the best, period. 4.3, 440, 37-inch vert, a 10-foot, 10-inch broad jump. This guy is a heat-seeking missile. Although sometimes his tackling, he has the ability to hit hard, sometimes his technique as a tackler doesn't match up with his potential ability as a tackler. He's got incredible range. He's just got to improve his recognition ability so he can get there sooner. Because the quicker he reacts, the quicker he can get there and do things. But he has the ability he has the ability to play both positions because of his size and physicality. He can play that strong safety role. If he improves to where he can be adequate as a man defender, he's got really high upside. Because like his range as a free safety, once again with improvement in recog in deep zone, he's got sideline to sideline speed easy, and his first step is just boom, and he's going. Tyson Anderson out of Toledo is my number 8 safety. He is 6'2", 209, 33-inch arms. He's got awesome size and length. He had a 4.36 40, 35.5-inch vert, 10'3" broad jump. His 3-cone was a 6'6", 4.28 20-yard shuttle. And this guy's not far off in size from Hamilton. And yet you look at his agility numbers in the 3-cone and the 20-yard shuttle. And I mean, the 3-cone's far better. I've got Anderson a little lower than some of these other guys because he played in the MAC, but I considered putting him ahead of McKinley and Cross. I think he's going to go after Cross for sure. He might go ahead of McKinley. But Anderson's awareness in zone coverage is really good. And with his athleticism, really high upside player. After that, I've got another really high upside guy for my number 9 safety. That's JT Woods out of Baylor. He's super raw. He needs some coaching. But at 6'2", 195, 32 and 3/8-inch arms, he ran a 4.36 40. He had a 39.5-inch vert, 10'8" broad jump. He's got really good ball skills. He played free safety at Baylor. The issue was he wasn't really he wasn't very instinctive in coverage. He was very reactionary, but a lot of times his reacting ability is good. It's just his recognition ability was crap. His tackling technique is bad. But if he does get if he is squared up on you coming downhill, he will level you. He's got some very entertaining tape. And he's a really high upside player. But I think he's a free safety. He's got strong safety size, but he's very much a true free safety. Because I think he would need heavy coaching at both styles of play. I would just focus on him as a free. As a single high or playing in 2 high looks, I wouldn't worry about at first trying to coach him up how to play in the box. After him, number 10 is Kelby Joseph out of Illinois. 6'1", 203, 33-inch arms. He's really solidly built. He also didn't run the 40, but he had an 18 on the bench, 38.5-inch vert, 10'3" broad jump. He's a more physical safety. Some people have him as their 4th, 5th ranked safety. I'm not willing to go there, but he did look really good at Illinois this year. And then a safety I'm lower on than pretty much everybody. It's not that I don't like him. I just don't like him as much as his teammates that went into the draft last year. And that's Brian Cook of Cincinnati. 6'1", 206, 32-inch arms. He didn't work out in the combine. I think it was because of an injury. His tape is fine. It's solid. But I think he played on a really talented defense where I think he was blessed that he had 2 great corners playing on the outsides. I think he's a solid safety. I just don't think I don't think he has the upside of pretty much or of any of the guys that are rated ahead of him. Personally, most people will be like, you have him ahead of, or I mean, you have him below Verone McKinley. It's like, yeah, I really like McKinley. Probably more than just, I probably am higher on him than just about anybody at this point. But you know, it's my rankings. I'll do what I want. From there, I think there's a step down after my next guy, which is my number 12 safety. That's Quentin Lake of UCLA. Now, he's not very fast. He ran a 4.59 40. And he did no other testing. He's 6'1", 201 with 31.25-inch arms. But his instincts are as good as any player in the draft. If you could marry his brain with the physical tools of... If you can marry his brain with JT Woods' physical tools, Woods would probably be the number one corner or the number one safety in the draft, is the way I'd put it. Or at least he'd be in consideration because Lake diagnoses really quickly. He's one of the best defensive backs, period, in this draft at recognizing route combinations. His recognition and reaction times are super fast. He just doesn't have the physical traits of other guys. I think for a lot of these teams that are playing too high safety a lot, he is a perfect fit for like the Bills style of defense because in a too high you're not having to play with as much range, and he can play really well underneath as a buzz defender coming from like a too high look into a hook zone. And he's actually pretty solid in man coverage in the underneath game because of how smart and intelligent he is. I just really like him. He just doesn't have amazing athletic traits. After him, my 13th safety is Smoke Monday out of Auburn. 6'2", 207, 32.5-inch arms, 4'5", 240, 10'4" broad jump. He had a 7 flat and a 3 cone. He's a physical downhill safety. He'll help you a lot in the run game. But he needs improvement in coverage areas. And he'll work out in too high looks. But other than that, he's more of a run support guy, but I really like him. I think there's a definite amount of I think he could definitely improve in coverage at the next level, but he's one of your better run support safeties. So he's 13. 14 for me is Wanye Thomas out of Georgia Tech, 6'1", 212, 32 3/8-inch arms, 4.55 40, 17 on the bench, 34-inch vert, 10'2" broad jump. Once again, he's another kind of... He's like a box strong safety type player. Physical against the run. Like, he's going to be aggressive for you in the run game. Let me see, where is he? I'm trying to remember where I'm at now. 15, I think. Because I had Cook 11. Dadgummit, I've lost my spot. See, the further you get down, it's hard to remember exactly where your number is here. $10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So yeah, 15. 15 for me is Percy Butler of Louisiana. So Butler's 6 foot, 194, 31 5/8-inch arms, 4.36 40. He's really fast. he had a 12 or a 10'3" broad jump, which is really good. His vert was kind of disappointing at 31.5. But he has some speed, like he has some athletic traits that give him upside. And at this point, like pretty much everyone down here, you're looking for upside as players. Now this guy, Marquise Bell. Oh, dude, I forgot about Marquise Bell. Oh, I'm gonna have to re-up these rankings. This is what happens when I'm looking at these prospect listings and don't have my notes out. So Marquise Bell is actually safety 10. I kind of jumped. So that moves Kelby Joseph down to 11. Cook down to 12. Lake to 13. Monday to 14. Thomas to 15. Butler to 16. So Bell is 10. Bell has incredible physical tools. He played at a really small school. He played at Florida A&M. But he is 6'2". I thought I clicked on him, but I clicked on another prospect there. Man, how is he this low? So he played at Florida A&M. He's 6'2", 212, 32 3/8 inch arms, 4'4", 140, 36.5 inch vert, 10'3" broad jump. He had a 4.46 20-yard shuttle. To me, you're looking at a faster Kyle Hamilton. Now, I'm not saying he's as good as Kyle Hamilton from a... There are things he's not as good as Hamilton at. He's faster, but will play that same role. But he can play free safety and play vertically in a way Hamilton can't. So he's actually my number 10. Which that put Percy Butler at 16, which then Dane Belton of Iowa is number 17. 6'1", 205, 31 inch arms. He had a 4.43 40, 36.5 inch vert, 10'3" broad jump, 7.01 3-cone, 4.24 20-yard shuttle. Belton's a very moldable player. Iowa safeties have been really good bets in the draft. I don't like his tape as much as I like Geno Stone or Amani Hooker, but he is more physically talented than either. I think you would start him off as a box safety. Like you'd want him playing more the run against the run and playing more in the flat, really, kind of in some buzz concepts where like he's moving downhill from like a too high look into a hook zone rather than being in the box and sliding to a hook zone. Or like I said, moving out to the flat. But he's got a lot of upside. He's very moldable. After him, number 18 is Leon O'Neal out of A&M. 6'1.5" 204 pounds, 31 5/8 inch arms. He opted not to run the 40 at the combine, but 15 reps on the bench, 35 inch vert, 10.5 broad jump, 6.89 3-cone, and he's a physical tackler. I don't love his instincts. He doesn't really have great instincts as a free safety, playing the kind of the deep middle. And his range, sideline is not great. But as a too high safety and more of a box guy, I do like him a lot as a day 3 pick. Number 19 for me is DeLorean Turner-Yell out of Oklahoma. 5'10", 197, 31 3/4 inch arms. He had a 4.47 40 and a 10'2" broad jump. He's really a run and hit type player. I don't love his instincts as a safety, which is why I'm lower on him than a lot of people are. 20 is Bubba Bolden out of Miami. 6'2", 209 with 31 and 3/8 inch arms. He had a 4.4 740. He had a sub 10-foot broad jump. It was like 9-foot 8-inch broad jump. You can flip him in Turner Yell. Some people would probably have him rated higher. He came into the year like he was a fairly highly recruited player out of high school, but personally, he's got tools, but he's never really manifested them into the level of play people expected of him. 21 is Yusuf Coker out of Kentucky. 6 foot, 203, 31 inch arms. All he did at the combine was the bench press, which was 23, which for a safety, for a guy who's like 203 pounds, that's really gnarly. He's physical, and he's good against the run, but I'm not a massive fan of his coverage ability. He'd have to develop a lot in that regard. And then after that, pretty much everyone is kind of undrafted guys like Guinterio Cole out of Louisville, Kobe Harville Peel out of Oklahoma State. And while I love him, my guy Theo Jackson out of Tennessee, he's probably going to go undrafted. But he can play safety and be a slot defender. Like, he'd be a really, really, really poor man's version of Jalen Petrie. Like, he's not as good, but that's the kind of, player he is. That kind of role. Like, he can play, free, but nowhere near as good as I think Petrie can. He's more of a too-high safety slot, box safety. Then we've got the specialists. At punter, Matt Areza's leg is the most insane thing I've ever seen. And it wouldn't shock me if he went as early as like the 5th round, 4th round even. Although like that doesn't happen as much today, but like Areza's gonna get drafted by someone because it's like the dude can boom balls for as I've seen anyone ever. And there's a lot of good specialists in my opinion in this draft. Jordan Stout out of Penn State, really good punter. He also played field goal kicker in college, but he's definitely a better punter. Jake Camarda out of Georgia's a really good punter. I feel like he took us. I don't think his punting tape, and I watch a lot of punters because Tennessee is like punter you. Camarda felt like he wasn't as good this year as he was like basically in every other year he was in college at Georgia. But he's got real good talent at the position. I'm trying to remember the name of Colorado State's punter. For some reason, he is not listed here. I really liked him at the East West Shrine game. So those would be like the 4 guys that, out of all the punters in this class, those are the guys. At kicker, Cade York is easily the number 1. I don't know how anyone would have someone rated ahead of him. York's awesome. He has one of the greatest kicks in college football history, in my opinion. During the 2020 season against Florida in the swamp, 57-yard field goal in foggy conditions, foggy, wet conditions, to put the team ahead. Just clutch. The guy who missed the field goal on the next possession, Evan McPherson, just almost helped win the Bengals a Super Bowl and had one of the best rookie kicker seasons of all time. McPherson was awesome, by the way. Like, he was easily the top kicker last year. He missed a 50, I think it was like a 51-yarder, but the fog had gotten worse. Like, and it was slick. Like, I kind of give him a pass, but it just made it even more impressive that York hit his. Although it certainly wasn't as foggy when he kicked. But like, I would argue that McPherson's It was 6 yards shorter, but because of the video board light and the fog, it was. I would say the visibility was definitely noticeably worse for him than York. So it was probably. I'd argue it might have been a harder kick from a nailing the accuracy standpoint. But I mean, York's kick from 57 is one of the greatest kicks in college football history. Cameron Dicker out of Texas is number 2. I think his leg strength is better than my number 3 kicker, Gabe Burkich of Oklahoma. I think Burkich is more accurate. I think his leg's a little more consistently accurate, but Dicker's got really good strength. Dicker also played kicker and punter, and it wouldn't shock me if whoever drafted Dicker had him play punter instead of kicker. So, but those are your specials. And then there's one long snapper in this draft that I think could actually get drafted, period, and that's Cal Adamitis out of the University of Pittsburgh. I actually would be shocked if he didn't go, if he didn't get drafted with a pick. So that's my prospect rankings, and now we're gonna do a very quick mock draft of the first round, and then I'm getting off of here, and I'm gonna rest my voice a little bit. Honestly, we're doing a pretty decent time. Only an hour and a half right now, considering all I've talked about. So, quick mock draft, and I've been thinking this over for a while. This is, and in wanting to do this, I'm kind of I'm wondering if I should do parallel mock drafts where I say what I would do and what I think is going to happen. But to be honest, I've given my rankings, which you don't have physical copies of. I'm going to do this mock draft how I think it's going to happen, or what I think is going to happen, not what I would do. And at this point, I am convinced that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to draft someone other than Aiden Hutchinson at number 1. The owner wants Hutchinson, but I think he will cave to the staff, which means the battle is between Trayvon Walker, Trent Balk's favorite player in the draft, and Ika Mekwonu, the head coach, Doug Peterson's number 1 player. And I think they're going to go Trayvon Walker. The Lions are then going to run to the podium for Aiden Hutchinson. And to me, I think this is a great scenario for Hutchinson and for the Lions. This is the kind of thing I've wanted for the Lions, because Hutchinson is from Michigan. He is exactly Dan Campbell's kind of guy, and he's exactly what they need to fill, in my opinion, the most important need on the roster, which is a number 1 edge rusher. At 3, if I'm Houston, I'm taking the best player. Well, I say if I'm. This is not what I would do. If it was me, I'd probably run to the podium for Evan Neal, the number 1 prospect. I'm not convinced that's going to happen. Actually, I think the Texans are the most intriguing team because I think no one knows what Houston's going to do. I've heard Gardner. I've heard Stingley. I've heard Kayvon Thibodeau, or whoever the best pass rusher is. I've heard Ika Mekwonu. I've heard Evan Neal. Of course, for me, if I was going with the best edge rusher, it would be Jermaine Johnson, because he's my number 2 edge behind Hutchinson. This all depends on what the Texans want to do. But they need a number 1 pass rusher bad. They need a number 1 corner bad. And they really need to improve their offensive line badly. And if the team obviously believes in giving Davis Mills a shot to be their quarterback of the future this year. That's, to me, what everything they've done this offseason, like re-upping Brandon Cooks, I think was a big tell towards that. I think they draft Evan Neal at 3 and slot him in at right tackle across from Laramie Tunsil, and you don't have to worry, or you shouldn't have to worry about your quarterback having time to throw. I think that's the best pick they can make, and I think Nick Caserio, when it comes time to pull the trigger, he's going to prioritize that quarterback, and he's going to use the 13th pick to bolster the defense. So that said, we get to 4. And I think the Jets are going to be... I think the Jets are going to prioritize defensive or a pass rusher right here. And I think they're going to take Kayvon Thibodeau at number 4. Now, they could go corner. They could go receiver. Like, that could be Garrett Wilson or Drake London. I think they're going to... And there's tons of talk. They're trying to trade the 10th pick for a top, like, proven commodity at receiver. So, like, they've apparently been, like, they full court press for DK Metcalf. Seattle said, would you stop calling us? They hit up the Titans, and the Titans are like, we're not interested. And A.J. Brown also conveyed that he is not interested in playing for the Jets. The Niners so far have rebuffed, calls for Debo. Or apparently, aren't interested in... Like, John Lynch has said he's not interested in trading Debo Samuel, but... To me, though, Robert Saleh, for his defense to succeed, he needs an elite pass rusher. He needs an elite pass rush. And I think they're going to have Kayvon Thibodeau as the top pass rusher on their board. I think Jermaine Johnson's going to be the 4th pass rusher taken, even though he's my number 2. So I've got I'm expecting Kayvon Thibodeau then to go 4. Number 5, the Giants are really high on Charles Cross. And I hear the Panthers are really high on him. There is a lot of talk that the Carolina is going to draft a quarterback. They'd like to trade down, but I don't think anyone's going to move up. I think the Giants are going to make sure they get Cross. And they're going to take Cross at 5 because they love him. They want to make sure Daniel Jones has everything he needs to succeed, which is why they should keep Kadarius Toney, but whatever. They want to make sure he's upright this season. And drafting Charles Cross is going to do that because he's the best pass-protecting tackle in this draft, tape-wise, period. And, yeah, he's played at left tackle. I think all of his career at Mississippi State. I don't know if I can't remember if he's taken snaps at right tackle. But his 2020 and 2021 tape at left tackle. Yeah, because he's a sophomore redshirt. He's only played at left. He's good. Like, Cross is great. And I think it'll translate to the right tackle position. He's really fluid. He just stonewalls top pass rushers. I'm certainly not worried about Cross translating. I mean, he's my number 5 prospect for a reason. Yeah. That leads to the Panthers at 6. And I'm just not convinced they're going to draft a quarterback at this point. There was a lot of buzz about it, but I'm just not convinced. And they need a left tackle. And, I had Cross for them for a while because I thought Ekwonu was going to go sooner. And I think Ekwonu goes to the Panthers here. And they develop him as their left tackle of the future. I don't think they're going to go quarterback. If they do, it's going to be Kenny Pickett. There's no way they're drafting Willis. He is not ready to play. If they're drafting a rookie, he's got to be able to compete and play right away. I think the Panthers would love to trade down and try and get some picks or get like a mid-round pick that they can maybe send for Jimmy Garoppolo or Baker Mayfield. But I don't think that's happening. I think they'll eventually I think sometime during the summer, they're going to acquire one of the veteran quarterbacks open for trade on the market. So I've got Ekwonu going 6th to the Panthers. Number 7, the Giants are back on the board. This one's interesting because to me, you take Jermaine Johnson here. I think the Giants might instead take Gardner and try and trade James Bradbury to get that money off their books. But I really do think Giants management is really intelligent. I don't think they're going to waste this opportunity to get a top-end pass rusher. And I think they're going to draft Jermaine Johnson at 7. Then the Falcons come up at 8. The Falcons are going to take... and here's the other thing. If the Panthers did draft a quarterback, it would not shock me in the slightest if the Giants, even after drafting Cross at 5, drafted Ekwonu at 7. Or Neal, if either of those guys are available. Let's say Ekwonu goes to the Texans, or somehow all 3 of those guys are available at 5. Like, don't be shocked if the Giants drafted 2 linemen, because Ekwonu they could throw in at left guard or right guard, one of the guard spots, and go from having one of the worst offensive lines in the league to one of the highest upside offensive lines in league history with just 2 picks. But I really do think the Panthers are going to be I'm hoping the Panthers are going to be intelligent enough to improve the left tackle spot. Finally. So they're going to go Ekwonu. Johnson's going to go 7. And then at 8, Garrett Wilson's going to go off the board of the Falcons. Wilson is the top healthy, at the moment, wideout on the board. And he's an extremely safe pick. And he'll be... The Falcons' receiver room is maybe the worst position group in the league. I'd say it's the worst position group in the league. So they've got to go there. The other thought would be Drake Jackson, and maybe they just decide to take my number 1 receiver, Jameson Williams, despite the ACL injury. That's not what I'm hearing, though. Garrett Wilson, I think most everybody thinks Garrett Wilson will be the first wideout taken. Seattle then is at 9, and they're super excited. They're going to take Gardner at 9 in this scenario because, I mean, he's literally the profile of the corner that they love. Now, they could go Stingley. It depends on who is the number 1 corner on their board. Some teams have Stingley rated ahead of Gardner at this point. From what I understand, the Texans do. But I'm going to expect Gardner here because he's bigger, he's stronger, he's really athletic. Like, he fits. Now, they do have a new defensive coordinator group or new defensive coaching staff in there, so that could change some of that, but the GM and head coach are still the same. So then at 10, the Jets are on the board. And if I'm the Jets, they're talking about number 1 receivers, but I just don't see them drafting Drake London over Derek Stingley Jr. They need to improve their defense. They've got receivers there. And this is a deep receiver class. And the word is that for most people think London's going to be the other receiver vying for first taken. I've been all over the place on London during this process. I think he's probably going to go before these other receivers that I have ranked ahead of him. But as far as I'm concerned, Derek Stingley, I just have him rated ahead of him anyway, and the Jets need a number 1 corner. You take Derek Stingley at 10, period. And I think that's what they're going to end up doing. I think Salah and Joe Douglas are going to focus on the defense because they have offensive weapons. They have a solid offensive line developed. They can improve the interior, like the right guard spot. They can get a young upside right guard or a developmental player like Tyler Smith, I think, in round 2. Or who can start off at guard and move outside the tackle later. Because George Fant is a solid right tackle. So that goes to Washington 11. Washington is targeting a receiver. This is where I think Drake London goes. Because he gives... And they've tried some picks, some like mid... Like some... like day 3 picks on getting bigger bodied receivers. I think this is where Drake London goes. The other potentiality at 10 or 11... Kyle Hamilton is still on the board. I'm lower on Hamilton, but I think he's going to be the first safety taken. So, look for Hamilton potentially here at Washington. But to me, they've got a comparable, similar guy in Cameron Curl with similar strengths and weaknesses. So, to me, that would just be redundant. Although Hamilton could play that hybrid safety linebacker role that Landon Collins played. But I think they're going to go Drake London. They want to give Carson Wentz all the options. And he gives them a flavor they don't have. They have Terry McLaurin, who's like a little skinny, but he's a complete kind of all-around number 1 receiver. You've got Diami Brown, who is a athletic deep threat, screen threat. You've got Curtis Samuel, who is the slot gadget type guy. London gives you a big-bodied red zone threat who also has great short area quickness, like great quick feet. I'm just questionable of his long speed. Whereas Brown's a little, or has more of a burner to him, like London's more the physical type. He gives you another flavor of receiver. And I think that's where they're going at 11 based on what reports are going around. That leaves Minnesota at 12. And I think they're going to go Trent McDuffie, the top corner on the board. And, I mean, it fits their MO as an organization, even with a new head coach and new general manager. That's a big need. So is edge, I think, well, opposite Danielle Hunter, like, and potentially long-term. But you got to have multiple corners, and there's the value for edge just isn't here with David Ojabo having got hurt. Now, if they took him, I think it'd still be worth it. But I'm thinking how I'm trying to do this based on the league's thinking, and I just think McDuffie's the fit there for Minnesota at 12. Kyle Hamilton at any pick now is a dark horse, and I'm going to say this at 13. I think the Texans would take Kyle Hamilton in this situation because at this point, he would easily, I think, for pretty much everyone, be the highest rated player on the board. Not me, but I think for the league. And I think their front office would love him. And I think for Lovie Smith's defense, playing where I will expect them to play a lot of too high and potentially play him some as like a coverage like linebacker or slot. I think Hamilton could fit really well there. 14 is Baltimore. And I've had David Ojabo. Like, I love that fit. I don't think that's happening now. They very well could go Trevor Penning here. They could go Tyler Linderbaum here. I'm going to say this. This is where, and I don't like to do this, and I don't know what the pieces would be, but right here, I'm mocking a trade between the Steelers and the Ravens. The Texans could also be a trade down candidate. And it wouldn't shock me if many even traded down. I think a number of these teams from after Washington could trade down for picks. And I thought about that for the Texans. I think the Ravens and Steelers make a deal, even though they're division rivals, and the Steelers come up and get Malik Willis at 14. That's my mock, or as part of this mock. Now, there's a lot of talk that actually the Steelers are the highest on Kenny Pickett. I don't buy that. I think Mike Tomlin's really high on Malik Willis. They have a quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky who has starting experience. They have a backup on the roster. Mason Rudolph, I believe, is still on the roster. He's had some starting experience. Willis can sit for a year. Like, Pickett's the guy you bring in and he competes right away. You think he can be the guy right away. So I'm not necessarily buying that. I think they're trading up for Willis. And that's your first quarterback off the board. At 15, you have the Eagles' first pick. Yeah, the Eagles' first pick. And this is where I think Jameson Williams goes. There's a lot of talk that they really love him. His speed, and they're trying to move Jalen Reagor to a team, give him a fresh start. I don't know what they'll end up being able to get for him, but Jameson Williams would give them just him and Devontae Smith, their speed, smoothness, and slipperiness after the catch. Like, dude, that'd be crazy. But I think Jameson Williams goes at 15 to the Eagles, and if he doesn't go there, he will go to the Saints. At 16, now, and I've also heard this, Chris Olave is very much in play at 11 for Washington. At 16, the Saints need a offensive tackle of the future, and I want Penning, and I think Penning would be the pick for the Ravens at 14 if they don't trade down, but I decided to do a trade in my mock. I think Penning goes 16 to the Saints, which, I want him to get to the Chargers so bad to be their right tackle of the future, but that's just not happening in this mock. Because that's what the Saints need, and I think the Saints will pull that trigger, because Penning, there's a lot about Penning where it's like, he fits that mold that, like, when the Saints drafted Teron Armstead, like, Penning hits a lot of those. Like, elite athlete at the position. There's just a lot to love about him. And he's one of the nastiest offensive lineman prospects I've ever seen. So then, for the Chargers at 17, this is where things get interesting because they did a lot of work on the interior defensive line. And I kind of feel like drafting Jordan Davis here is putting a ton of eggs in that basket, especially when you still have Jerry Tillery, who you're hoping will eventually develop after being a first-round pick in 2019. Although I didn't have him as a first-round guy in 2019. I thought he was overrated, and so far that's proven true. But Davis is just so talented. That I feel like it's going to be really hard for the Chargers to pass him up. I think they're a dark horse, potentially go with a receiver. I think the Chargers in this scenario with Penning off the board are very much in play to try and trade down for someone who's trying to move up to get ahead of some of these other receiver-needing teams. So, and it wouldn't shock me. There's another team that could trade up very much so in the Chiefs. I just don't know if the Chargers would want to move back that far. But I've got the Chargers taking Jordan Davis here because he's just amazing upside talent. And considering you have Sebastian Joseph Day, You have Austin Johnson. You have Jerry Tillery. But particularly like Sebastian Joseph Day. Davis can play snaps at nose, but you could put him potentially in a kind of a 4 technique or 5 technique, or if you wanted to come out in a big boy 4-3 front with him and Sebastian Joseph Day, and play him at a 1 or a 3 technique, you could do that. And maybe attempt to unlock some more pass rush potential out of Davis. But I just feel like Davis, I think a lot of people around the league really love Davis. I think he's rated higher for a lot of people than he is by a number, or in the league, he's rated higher than he is by a lot of the media people because of positional value and whatever, or player archetype value. Davis is just a special player, and someone's going to take, and I just feel like the Chargers, they really want to improve their run defense. That's how you can do it. So then you've got and then you've got the Saints. I think it's the Saints again at 18, or is it the Eagles? I gotta look this up now. I'm gonna try and fly through the back half of this. I'm looking at. Okay, so let's look at the draft order here. Yeah, so the Eagles are at 18. I actually thought so. So Eagles at 18. And it wouldn't shock me for the Eagles to be aggressive again. And I could see them potentially trading down again in a certain scenario. There we go. But I don't have them doing that here. I think the Eagles at 18 go with, oh gosh. I need to go take an allergy pill. Since they've already got a receiver, now if I were them, I'd be totally comfortable going with David Ojabo here. They could go with another pass rusher. They could go corner here as well. I think the Eagles are going to trade down here. And I think the team that is going to move up is... I think the Packers are going to move up to get a receiver from the 22 spot to 18. And the Eagles are going to get some more draft capital to move around the board with, potentially later in the draft, or, eventually make a trade to move some stuff in the future. And the Packers are going to take Chris Olave at 18. They're going to get ahead of the Saints, because I think that would be the Saints' pick in this scenario at 19. So the Packers move up from 22 to 18, take Olave. Now the Saints at 19, they could look to trade down, but I don't know if they're going to be able to. In this scenario, I think the Saints in this scenario decide to reload at safety, and they take Daxton Hill at 19. which Saints fans might not be happy with, but I think you've potentially gotten a better safety. And he's going to be really fun because of what you can do with him and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in New Orleans. Because Gardner-Johnson can play the slot and he can play deep. You can have Hill do the same stuff. Hill can even play some outside corner. They could get really multiple here in New Orleans. And with your other slot guy, PJ Williams, also playing some safety, like you can have him or Hill, Gardner-Johnson, and Williams on the field, and you can switch up all kind of stuff and just screw with offenses and lean into the defensive identity that the Saints have had for the last few years. This is a deep receiver class. You know, you're hoping to come up with a high upside guy. There are guys down the board. Now the Saints could, I think if the Saints try to, they could trade back. If the Eagles decide to pick someone at 18, the Saints could decide, let's move back and get some picks after we traded up, or after we made a big aggressive trade to get a second first round pick. If the board doesn't fall in a really optimal way for their first two picks to get what they really want. And, I mean, they could even at 19 draft a Treylon Burks or draft Jahan Dotson or someone else at the receiver position. I just feel like I think they're really locked in on Chris Olave. Which they could take Olave at 16 and risk not pinning either. But I just think from a positional value standpoint and how well they've done at finding receivers outside of the first round, and even like, you know, the 6th, 7th round undrafted in the Mickey Loomis era, you know, prioritize the offensive tackle. So, like I said, Saints draft Daxton Hill at 19-20. You've got the why am I blanking on this one? Yeah, so the Steelers traded up. That's why I was blanking. So now the Ravens are on the board at 20. I think the Ravens at this point, I think they just pulled the trigger on the top edge rusher available. And and they just take the risk and they go with David Ojabo. Another guy who could be in play here, to me, would be Arnold Ebiketie. But I think I'm just going based on where Ojabo was before the injury, and I think the Ravens would be totally okay with taking that risk. I mean, because they drafted Rashad Bateman, you know, despite the fact he was dealing with some, you know, injury stuff last offseason that ended up persisting into or all the way through the offseason. '21, you've got New England. New England's interesting because they need receiver, but they've not done a good job of drafting first round receivers. Let's just put it that way. And why would that change now? So for me, I'm looking at what their kind of needs line up as, and kind of looking at the history of the Patriots drafting. And I actually think Devin Lloyd comes off the board here. He's a versatile linebacker with no weaknesses in his game. He can do a bit of everything. He can't play the Dante Hightower role, but he can do everything else. And I think he fits really well for the Patriots. And they love They love the linebacker position. They love investing in the linebacker position. They've spent first round picks on it in the past. And I just think Devin Lloyd's I think he's too highly graded for them to pass up at 21. At 22, the Eagles are on the clock after trading down. I think here they take Andrew Booth out of Clemson. I'm higher on Zion McCollum and Kyer Elam. I think Booth is pretty much the consensus number 4 corner, or most teams' number 4 cornerback around the league. So I think Booth goes here. 23, the Cardinals. The Cardinals are going to go receiver. And I think they're going to go with Treylon Burks because of his ability to... They have like a gadget type guy in Rondale Moore. Burks gives them a more physical version of that. He gives them a more physical outside receiver. It's kind of interesting. He's bigger than Hopkins and Moore, but he gives you kind of crossover abilities between the two because he can be a physical contested catch guy, but he can also be a run after catch guy. He can be used on motion. He can be used out of the backfield. You can give him carries. Like, I think Burks just gives a lot of options for that offense. 24. That's the Cowboys. Yep. 24 is the Cowboys. And the board has fallen great for the Cowboys, in my opinion, in this scenario. Because you can go offensive line or you can go edge here. And I've really leaned interior line for the Cowboys here. Like, Kenyon Green has been the guy I've had here for a while. But in this scenario, and from what reports I'm hearing, they want a high upside edge. This is where Arnold Ebiketie goes off the board at 24. I think he's a great compliment to DeMarcus Lawrence. I think he can fit. I think he's going to be really. I think he'd be really good in Wink Martindale's defense, because I believe that's who they brought in, right? To be their or no. Wait. I'm wrong. Martindale's with the Falcons, right? I'm trying to remember who their defensive coordinator is right now, because they didn't change out defensive coordinator, did they? I think I'm confusing them with the Falcons. Yeah, Dan Quinn's there. Oh, no. Duh. He didn't get a head coaching job this offseason. So, I think Ebiketie is perfect for Quinn. Quinn loves speed rushers. He's a great compliment to Lawrence. Lawrence is a more of a power-oriented rusher. He's a longer, stronger rusher. And Ebiketie's strong, and he's got long arms, but he's a little shorter. He's 6'2". He's got incredible burst and explosiveness. He was really productive last year. 9.5 sacks in the Big Ten. I think that's a home run pick. 25, the Titans here. Let me just say that there are so many ways we can... Oh, wait, no. It's the Bills. We're at 26. We're at 26. Since they extended Stephon Diggs and they have Gabriel Davis, I don't think they're going to go receiver in the first round. With that being the case, I think the Bills could go in a number of different directions. They could go interior line here. I don't think they will, though. I think it's either interior defensive line, which would be Devontae Wyatt here, or corner. And if they're going corner, I think they go with a physical corner, and they go with Kyer Elam. Or no. You know what? Actually, I'm going to go with another guy. Based on what the Bills have valued in drafting corners, I'm going to go with Kyler Gordon out of Washington at 25 for the Bills. Because they did make some moves on the defensive line. I don't think they're going to draft White. I have White rated higher than like this slot. I just am not sure who's going to be drafting interior defensive line and draft that type of defensive lineman in the first round based on team needs right now for teams around the league and based on positional values. But Devontae White's definitely in play here. And he could be in play for the Chargers if they would rather have a penetrator than Davis. But I went with Davis. But the Bills are going to... I think the Bills go Kyler Gordon in this scenario. Then you have the Titans, and we don't have extra picks. Or, like, we don't have a second-round pick. I think we trade down with the Chiefs. And the Chiefs give up the 29th pick to move up to 26th. Or actually, they give up the 30. They give up the 30, and we get a second-round pick from them to move up a few spots. And they take Jahan Dotson at 26. Who is the last surefire first-round receiver on pretty much everyone's boards. That's what I'm calling. Now I think the Chiefs are extremely likely to move up. They've got a lot of picks they need to get. I think they're going to move around the board a lot. And actually, they probably would trade up even higher than this and get, because they've got 12 picks in this draft. They've got too many picks. They don't have the roster space for that many rookies. So, but the Titans, maybe we don't get a second, but we get, multiple picks down the board. But Titans trade down, I'm going to say, to 30. And the Chiefs are going to take Dotson at 26. At 27, I think the Buccaneers then at 27, this comes down to interior offensive line and interior defensive line. I'm going to say they're going to prioritize the offensive line, and they're going to take Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. He seems to be the consensus, or the majority of people's top interior offensive lineman. Or at least guards. I have Zion Johnson right ahead of him. I think Kenyon Green's going to be drafted first. The Packers then at 28 draft Zion Johnson. Instead of like potentially doubling up at receiver, I think that's where they go. And by the way, when I had them trade up for Chris Olave, I know some people probably would have expected Treylon Burks based on the Packers' tendency towards bigger, stronger receivers. But I think they're looking for... I think Olave is the smoothest, most polished receiver that was left on the board at that point. And he has really great deep speed. And I just think... I think he would win out over Treylon Burks in that scenario. I could be wrong, but it would be down to those two. But anyway, at 28, I say Zion Johnson. They need another interior offensive lineman, and I think a higher upside guy. Since they're moving Elton Jenkins to right tackle, Zion Johnson is that. You plug him in right there. and he starts from day one. The Chiefs are then on the board again at 29. I say they go corner here. They go Kaiir Elam. The Titans then are on the board at 30. And with Green and Johnson off the board, a bunch of the receivers off the board, or people's conventional first-round receivers, my third-ranked receiver, Christian Watson, is the pick at 30. This is probably, I'm going to say this is the one where I'm like, I'm picking for me. I'm doing this for me. And Watson could be gone by this point. It wouldn't shock me if the Packers or Chiefs, if the Packers doubled up a receiver or drafted something different at 22 and Watson was on the board at 28, Watson really fits the Packers mold of long, speedy wideout. But Watson to the Titans at 30. Because if we could trade down and get Watson or, interior lineman, I'd be totally chill. Or maybe draft Bernard Raymond, or I wouldn't love that as much, though. 31, the Bengals at 31. Their big needs. Offensive line is not necessarily a need now. I think they should still draft one, but I think they can do that later. The big needs for me are corner. They brought in Hayden Hurst at tight end. Still think tight end's a need for them. I think they need to draft one at some point. Sorry. Guard. Offensive line still. Definitely don't need to draft a receiver early. Although, after their top three guys, I think with Alden Tate leaving, and I think they lost someone else, they could still use. I think they should take a receiver at some point in the draft, probably on day 3. But corner to me is easily their number one need. And in this scenario, and knowing what kind of corners they like to draft, I think this would be a good spot as well for if Booth or Elam were on the board. These are guys that could definitely fit here. In this scenario, Zion McCollum goes off the board and he does go in the first round. He's just too talented, and he is Cincinnati loves fast corners. They love tall corners. William Jackson was a 6'2" or whatever corner with really great speed and athletic testing numbers. Dre Kirkpatrick was a big physical corner out of Alabama with really great top end speed. They brought Trey Wayans in from Minnesota, who was drafted by Mike Zimmer, and that team had very similar taste in corners to the Bengals. Leon Hall, like Jonathan Joseph. Zion McCollum fits that bill. This is how he gets in the first round, I believe. And he probably should go even higher, really. And then at 32, the Lions are back on the board. They drafted Aiden Hutchinson at 2. I think at 32. Now, I think they're a prime candidate to potentially trade down if someone wants to move up for a quarterback. And a number of these teams could as well. And there probably will be more than one quarterback in the first round, but this is just the way I'm seeing it. And I think the Lions kind of gears are turning here. Here's an interesting scenario for you. the Lions trade down with the Falcons, and the Falcons move up to 32 to get the 5th-year option, and they take Kenny Pickett. That's the first round mock. So, I'm going to end the show there. Please, if you're in the Southeast Texas area, oh man, I'm sorry I missed your chats, Mr. David King. Appreciate you tuning in. I think the Dolphins could trade with the Saints. We have capital next year. Miami could move up for a second. You know, that's a good point. Sorry, I was ignoring chat there, Mr. King. Which also, shout out to another King. Because I'm also a King, Hunter King. But, yeah, Miami absolutely could move up for a center. Because in this mock, I didn't have Linderbaum going. But the issue is, like, what are you trading to move up? Because, like, I don't think y'all's first pick is now until, like, the compensatory selections of the 3rd round. So, yeah, you've got future capital that you could use to move in. But that would be aggressive considering what y'all traded for Tyreek Hill. I don't know if your front office would be willing to be that aggressive again. So, I'm sorry I wasn't paying attention to chat. But no, thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry I ignored you. If you're still there, it doesn't seem like you are. You'd probably answer me by now. But thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate you. Sorry I was. This is the problem with being a blind man. You don't always notice when chat moves, and it's also partially my setup. If I'd been looking this way, if I had the ability to put my camera kind of in a better spot. But thanks for tuning in, man. I appreciate it. With that being said, please come to V's Feast if you're in the Southeast Texas area. There are still tickets available. It's at 6 p.m. tonight. It's going to be a real fun time. There's going to be giveaways. Last year, I think there was a big old, I think there was like a pontoon boat or no, a really nice fishing boat last year that got raffled off. Jace and Missy Robertson are going to be speaking, and it's going to be a fun time. I'm part of the band for it. So, with that being said, that's the show for today. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you very much. And I'll be on at some point when I get home for Beast Feast.